Hi, my name is Lisa Flanagan, and I'm a children's librarian at the Watauga County Public Library, part of the Appalachian Regional Library System in the mountains of North Carolina. And I just wanted to share a little bit with you today about our online Storyless story times. First, I wanted to provide you with a little bit of background regarding what I was involved in before the coronavirus pandemic hit in March of 2020. I was coming down the home stretch as the project manager of a 3-year IMLS LSTA grant-funded endeavor that we called Alphabet Ready. Our Alphabet Ready grant was actually influenced in part by another IMLS project that we had participated in years earlier called Supercharged Storytimes, and I'll link to that online training program on the final slide of this presentation. One of the activities of the Alphabet Ready grant included training volunteers, pictured in the middle of this slide, to take library storytimes into area daycare centers using the curated kits, pictured on the left. The storytimes focused on alphabet recognition and phonemic awareness, two of the best predictors of early reading success. Additionally, in year 2 and 3 of the Alphabet Ready grant, we were using paid part-time storytime providers to take those same kinds of story times weekly into nearly 50 pre-K and kindergarten classrooms in the counties that make up our regional system. When those schools closed at the end of March, I felt a responsibility to continue to support those teachers that we had been working with. So we transitioned from those in-person story times to creating online story times that I would then email to the teachers each week, and they in turn would email out to all of their families. I was asked to share a little bit about why I made the decision to create our online story times without actually reading a story on the video, and there were several reasons for that decision. First and foremost, I was concerned about copyright. Even though we were hearing that many authors or publishers were giving permission to read their books online for a certain period of time because of the pandemic, I really did not want to have to spend my time navigating all that, nor did I want to create something that would eventually need to be pulled from the internet. I was also very committed to the idea of creating something that would be evergreen, something that we could continue to share with our patrons and coworkers in the future. If I was going to invest this much time into something, I really wanted it to have some shelf life. The evergreen aspect would allow these videos to continue to support teachers and their classroom families next year when we would no longer be able to provide those grant-funded in-person story times. And now we would also have a curated resource that we could direct our patrons to as well. I also saw the value of online storytimes had the potential to be used as a training tool for our own future volunteers or future staff, and hopefully they would be of value to coworkers through the reach of the internet as well. Another benefit of the evergreen idea versus relying on a Facebook Live window of time or operating within the parameters of a video expiration date is that it enabled the storytime to pretty much become a passive program, something that patrons no longer had to plan to attend at a specific time, but could take advantage of whenever it suited them best. And I've always been a huge advocate of passive library programming. Last, but certainly not least, is the fact that this version of Screencast-O-Matic that I paid for would only let me record for 15 minutes. So by linking to stories that had already been recorded online, I could cram more alphabet recognition and phonemic awareness activities and flannel board fun and songs and things like that into those 15 minutes that I had available to me to make my recordings. Some of the technical difficulties that we encountered included lighting, the glare on the glasses of the storytime providers, as well as the glare on laminated storytime props, and even the glare from some of the book covers themselves can still provide some challenges. And honestly, learning how to interact with the editing software was a challenge for someone like me who is not a digital native. Although I'm very thankful for the wealth of people who have recorded themselves reading stories online, a self-imposed sort of technical difficulty is that I wanted to link to others reading stories who appeared to have permission to do those readings, and that very much limited the title selection that we could choose from for each of our story times. But a few of the organizations that we found were Brightly Storytime, Harper Kids, Storyline Online, which is the Screen Actors Guild of actors reading stories, the Astronauts in Space, and then we also link to our own digital collection as a resource for online story times. Another technical difficulty was that I had to learn how to create a YouTube channel because, again, I was looking for a way to create a resource that would be easy for others to interact with, and I didn't feel like scrolling through old Facebook posts was going to be the best way to serve anyone. And then it became unexpectedly challenging to help our patrons find the stories that we were linking to and the extra extension activities we were linking to in our video description. Even fellow librarians told us they were having a hard time finding how to access the information that we had been referencing throughout our story time. So we added a final slide to our story times directing people to how to find that information by clicking on the words "Show More" if they were on a laptop, and by clicking on that little arrow icon if they were on a phone. And honestly, another technical difficulty was just some of the letters of the alphabet proved to be more challenging than others to create story times for. So how's it going? I've heard the saying that done is better than perfect, and that is definitely the philosophy that we are using as we plow forward on this project. In our effort to create a truly valuable resource, we put a lot of time not just into the recording of these videos, but also in the research for extension activities to go along with the videos. So the image on the left side of the screen is a sample of what the list of curated activities would look like if you clicked on the Show More button on the YouTube channel. And those activities include links to the read aloud stories to accompany our Storyless Storytime, links to alphabet crafts, links to experiments for the focus letter that we're working on, finger plays that use the focus letter, informational videos, often about an animal that began with a featured letter like a quokka for the letter Q, and a numbat or naked mole rats for the letter N, songs, playlists, and tutorials for how to use our digital resources. And the playlists were actually created at the request of a mom who said she would like to be able to play the books we had linked to one right after another, instead of having to go click on each one individually. Occasionally, we have tried some alternatives to our story times so that there are some stories included in some of the story times. For instance, I was listening to a webinar where they were encouraging librarians that if you had written any original material to share those stories in online story times. And I had created a little photo book for our grandchildren about our Rottweiler who had eaten something for every letter of the alphabet. So I read that story in my letter Z story time. Additionally, I would modify stories. So the story here that I told and called The Very Lonely Princess was actually a story called My Very Froggy Valentine, and I shared the book at the beginning of the story and just said I was making a modification to that story. And then we've also done, cut and tear, fold and tear stories, and you could do string stories, you could do folk tales. There's all kinds of other ways that you could include a story in your story time that would not violate copyright. The other thing we did was for each letter of the alphabet, one of the Storytime providers created phonemic awareness activities, a video of phonemic awareness activities. So she created videos for activities for practicing compound words, beginning sounds, counting syllables, and rhyming words, and you can find all that on our Appalachian Regional Library YouTube channel as well. She did one of those for each letter of the alphabet. Then two little stories I wanted to tell you before I go is in the early days of the pandemic, I was walking down a gravel road near my house and a car passed me and then stopped and backed up, and the mom said that her children had recognized me as the storyteller from the library, and as long as they maintained social distance could they say hello to me. So we chatted for a while, and then the reason that they were familiar with me is because of the YouTube videos that we had been sending out, because I had not been specifically doing story times in their classrooms. And so as the family pulled away, the mom waved to me and said, "See you on YouTube." And then another story is Our community has a university, Appalachian State University, and because of that, we have a lot of international people come and take courses at the university. And those families will often end up bringing their children to the library for story time, I think in large part to practice English. So about 5 years ago, we had a family from India. They had 2 older girls and a baby boy at the time. And eventually their time here in the United States ended and they went back to India. Well, now that I've put these story times on a YouTube channel, they were able to find us and actually commented on one of the YouTube stories asking, did we remember them, and telling us that they were now using these online story times with their son, who was now old enough to start school. So what have some of the challenges been? Well, honestly, some of the challenges are just the fact that everybody's tired of screen time. So even though we've curated what we think is a great resource, not everybody wants to spend any more time on a computer. The other thing is just getting the word out that we've got this resource available. I'm always surprised. I feel like we've tried to market and we've done a good job, but then, the next day at the library, I'll mention to somebody we have a YouTube channel with online story times, and they're surprised and excited. So I'd like to find better ways to get the word out about the resources that we've created. And then another challenge is, what will we do in the future? And now that we are finishing up the alphabet, we may create story times around blends. I think that would be a good way to serve our community. Well, that's all, folks. I'm going to leave you with a link to our Appalachian Regional Library YouTube channel so you could check out some of those videos for yourself. I also wanted to link to our Alphabet Ready grant. That's a 15-minute presentation that tells you about it's kind of an overview of the 3 years and the many activities that we did besides just going into classrooms and doing story times. And there's the link for the supercharged online training if anybody was interested in pursuing that. Hope this was helpful, and I hope I'll get to answer any questions you might have.